Oh, we are live. Hello, Jacksonites. And hang on just a second. And welcome back to the third attempt at. And yes, I am wearing a long sleeve shirt. It's a miracle, ain't it? There we go. Welcome to the third attempt at reviewing the second film in the Resident Evil series. 2004's Resident Evil Apocalypse. Yes, indeed. So my story with Resident Evil Apocalypse goes like this. When I was about 12 or 13 years old, I was huge into Resident Evil. I was going through a massive Resident Evil phase. Hang on a second. I was going through a massive Resident Evil phase at the time. I would watch playthroughs of Resident Evil 1, 2, and a little bit of 4 all the time. All the time. I would play Resident Evil out in my backyard. Yes, at 12 and 13 years old, I would play Resident Evil. I was not a normal kid. And I don't mean like play like the games. I would actually like act out the like my next door neighbor who I was living next to at the time. She had a son, and he and I would just pretend to shoot zombies and monsters a lot. And I was huge into Resident Evil. And I was searching YouTube, and I came across the trailer to Resident Evil Apocalypse. And I had actually seen a couple fan trailers and was to be pissed off finding out that they were fake. But when I came across the trailer to Apocalypse, I realized this is an actual trailer. So this was back in the days when Blockbuster was still around. God damn, I miss Blockbuster so much. But me, my mom, and my stepdad, we went to the Blockbuster that we would frequent fairly often. And we found Resident Evil Apocalypse, and I begged my stepdad to rent it for me. And he and I watched it down in our basement that we had at the time. He had a projector set up so we could watch movies kind of semi-theater style. And let me tell you what, this movie scared the living shit out of me. Apocalypse scared me so bad, I literally ran out of the basement. I wasn't screaming, but I ran out of there so fast, it's not even funny. This movie just traumatized me for a very, very long time. I finally didn't get the ball. I finally didn't get enough balls to actually watch the movie by myself till I was about 15. And, but of course by then I had sort of kind of gotten over my fear of zombies. I mean, to this day, honestly, occasionally I get a little nervous of zombies. Like, I'm not absolutely scared of them, like, to the point where I can't even go to sleep. But there are times when I kind of get the feeling that I'm possibly being watched by a zombie sometimes. But this movie scared the living shit out of me so bad. It scared me. So with Resident Evil Apocalypse, obviously I do have a lot of nostalgia. This is one of my favorites of the entire series. In fact, I think I've said this before. This is probably my second favorite of the Resident Evil movies. And it amazes me how much hate this movie gets. Currently, this movie has a 21% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's got a 6 out of 10 rating on IMDb. Granted, Rotten Tomatoes is a shitty site because it sucks Disney's dick, but whatever. When it comes to Apocalypse, I am very much against the norm with Apocalypse. I love this movie. This is definitely the one of the entire Resident Evil series that I've seen the most. Sorry. This is one that I've seen the most, definitely. Well, it's not my favorite. It's my second favorite. I really, really do love this movie. And in fact, I kind of wonder why I didn't put this on my top 10 favorite zombie movies list. Ultimately, I just do kind of think that it really is. It's not completely a zombie movie. This movie certainly is more of a zombie film than the first Resident Evil movie. But it's not an entire zombie movie. Like, the main threat of the film are not the zombies. The they're the main threat, but they're not the big threat, and that's still definitely Umbrella. Oh, sorry. I'm reading something. I'll just jump right into plot. That's my story. I love Resident Evil Apocalypse. It's definitely a very, very good film in my opinion. So, the plot of Resident Evil Apocalypse is Alice, yes, wakes up inside the pharmaceutical company in Raccoon City by Umbrella. And she escapes the facility and finds Raccoon City to be completely desolated. A few hours later, I think it was like 18 hours previous, Umbrella decides to send a team of, I guess, scientists and soldiers into the hive to investigate what happened, but they are quickly overrun by zombies, which unfortunately spread into the nearby Raccoon City. And the zombies are just absolutely rampant. They're eating people, killing people, just absolutely going nuts. And Umbrella decides to quarantine the city from the rest of the world by building this giant wall along the outskirts of the city. The only way in or out inside Raccoon City is this big bridge. Disgraced police officer Jill Valentine, after shooting up, not really shooting up, but yeah, going into the police station, shooting zombies, decides to leave town, and she basically tells the rest of the cops at the police station, just get the fuck out of Dodge. So she meets up with her former partner, Sergeant Peyton Wells, at the gate at the bridge. However, a man collapses and turns into a zombie and bites Peyton. And this is when... Let's see, what's this guy's name? Major Timothy Kane, played by Thomas Kretschmann. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's a German name. Kane decides to completely seal Raccoon City in quarantine. And just leaves everybody to their own devices so they can contain the T-virus and prevent it from spreading. They fire upon the crowd at the gate. They don't actually kill anybody. They just shoot at them to scare them. After being abandoned by Umbrella following an attempt to rescue a civilian that goes bad, Umbrella soldiers Carlos Oliveira and Nikolai Genovev, that's their names, team up with the Raccoon City Police Department, STARS team, Special Tactics and Rescue Squad, to repel the waves and waves and waves of zombies. And at first they seem like they're just doing kind of okay, but eventually there's just so many zombies that their stake gets overrun. They decide their partner Yuri is bitten by a zombie, so they decide to retreat and hide for a little bit. However, at a separate area of Raccoon City, Peyton, Valentine, and there's a news reporter, Terry Morales, go inside a church. They find a priest there. I think he's a priest. No, he's not a priest. I guess he's like a pastor or something. But he's hiding inside the church. However, they quickly find out that this church is being invaded by 3 lickers. And right as they're about to be slaughtered by these creatures, Alice shows up, having escaped the facility, and she comes across a guns and ammo shop, picks up 2 .45 pistols, a shotgun, and 2 MP5s, and saves the saves Valentine, Peyton, and Terry from being slaughtered by the lickers, effortlessly killing all 3, using all 3 of her types of weapons. Not long after that, Umbrella deploys a heavily mutated super soldier, being Nemesis. Oh my god, Nemesis is awesome. And he decides to hunt down the remaining STARS members, before searching for Alice. While all this is going on, one Umbrella scientist, his name is Dr. Ashford, he hacks into the city's CCT system because he was supposed to be evacuated by Umbrella when the incident at the Hive occurred, but he decided to stay behind because his daughter was supposed to be evacuated as well. However, her convoy was smashed into by a semi-truck, and she escaped unharmed and decided to go back to hide out in her school. And obviously, he keeps telling him, "Look, hey, I don't want to leave and without my daughter. I'm not going anywhere without my daughter." So he hacks into the CCT system and he uses it to contact Alice as well as Carlos and Nikolai. They had to end up killing Yuri because he became a zombie. So Alice and Valentine and Terry, after Alice has a... Actually, no. Alice, Peyton, Terry, and Valentine have an encounter with Nemesis. Peyton is killed. Terry and Valentine run off and they escape Nemesis. Alice has a fight with... Actually, no, not really a fight. She gets her ass kicked with Nemesis. She... she loses him by tricking him into thinking that he kills her. Terry and Valentine hotwire a truck. In the process, they have to kill Peyton, who has zombified. They run into Lloyd Jefferson Wade, a.k.a. LJ. Valentine had encountered LJ earlier at the police station, but shot him free. And Valentine says, "Yeah, climb aboard," because LJ wants to come along. So they arrive at the school and they find it to be completely desolated, and empty and quiet. It's actually a really kind of a creepy scene, or a creepy set of scenes. LJ meets up with Carlos and they decide to team up. Terry is overrun by zombie children. Oh my god, that is the first scene in the film that really scared me. And I think it's that point when I just ran out of the basement because that zombie kids scared the living crap out of me so bad. Where was I? Oh yeah. And Valentine comes across Angela in the room where Terry was killed and dragged away. They have an encounter with zombie dogs, which were foreshadowed at the beginning of the school scene. Valentine is saved by Nikolai. However, quickly he is overrun and killed by zombie dogs as well. Valentine and Angela are saved by Alice once again when she flicks a cigarette into the school's kitchen, where Valentine had turned on the stoves without turning on the flames, so there's a whole bunch of gas seeping out. Kills the zombie dogs and discovers that Angela carries around an identical case to the first Resident Evil movie containing the T-virus and the antivirus. This is when we discover that Angela is infected with the T-virus, only with a very small amount, using its regenerative capabilities to fix... I think she's stricken with polio. I think. Let me look at it. It doesn't say. It is some type of genetic disease. I do believe it is polio. Which helps her walk again and regenerates the dead cells within her body, as long as the T-virus is kept in check with the antivirus. Which is, honestly, it's genius. Not gonna lie. After they escape the school, they have another conversation with Dr. What was his name? Dr. Ashford, and you find out that, well, actually no, they found this out earlier in the film, is that Umbrella's plan to stop the zombie infection is to basically nuke Raccoon City, which I honestly can't really argue with, because that is a pretty sure way. Actually, no, not really, because of this series logic, it doesn't really work, but it worked in the games. I'll get to that in just a minute, or in a little bit. So they make it towards City Hall, where they discover there is an airlift being held there. And they take out the guards guarding the helicopter. However, it's actually a trap set up by Kane, who found out that Dr. Ashford was hacking in the CCT system and holds the group hostage and has Alice fight Nemesis, who Alice realizes / remembers that Nemesis is Matt from the previous film. Not really. If you follow the series closely, it's not really a surprise if you're stupid. And the fight seems to be in more Alice's favor. However, Nemesis does manage to get in some good hits of his own. Alice impales Nemesis on a sharp piece of metal and decides to just not kill him and pisses off Kane. Major Kane kills Dr. Ashford. And when pulling himself free of this metal spike, he turns on Major Kane and attacks Umbrella troops. And there's a firefight that commences between Carlos and Jill, who manage to escape their bonds, and they have a firefight with the guards. Alice has a firefight of her own. However, Nemesis is unfortunately killed. Yes, I say unfortunately. When he is while protecting Alice from a helicopter. She gets smacked out by a piece of shrapnel, which I swear would have taken off her head, but movie logic. They eject Major Kane from the helicopter after one of my favorite lines in all of Resident Evil. Major Kane asks the pilot of the helicopter, "Why haven't we taken off?" Then it turns out to be LJ sitting there and says, "'Cause I usually drive a Cadillac." Bonk! Punches out Major. Oh, shit. They eject Kane from the helicopter, and he proceeds to be eaten by zombies. The survivors escape. The nuclear bomb detonates over Raccoon City. However, the resulting shockwave causes the chopper to crash. A few hours later, Alice's corpse is recovered by... she had sacrificed herself to protect Angela, and her corpse is recovered by... let's see... Dr. Alexander Isaacs. He wakes up she wakes up in an Umbrella research facility, I think it's a few weeks later, and escapes with help from Olivera, Angela, LJ, and Valentine. At first, she's kind of like a newborn. She has no memory when she wakes up from her, I guess like a Bacta tank, a Resident Evil version of a Bacta tank. However, she quickly regains all her memory and escapes with her crew, and thus ending the film, leading into the next movie. So how about this plot for Resident Evil Apocalypse? Well, I kind of have mixed feelings on the story itself. On one hand, it is a very good adaptation of Resident Evil 3. I'll get to that in a little bit. However, I do agree that this movie's story is very weak. The whole film takes place... it is a very good adaptation of Resident Evil 3, but I do agree that the story for this film is very weak. The whole movie takes place over the course of just one night. There's like 2 scenes in this movie, and they're really quick, that take place during the day. But other than that, it takes place... So this movie kind of is a bit of an... similarity to Night of the Living Dead, but only in the fact that it takes place over the course of one night. But outside of that, I really, really do like this movie. I believe that this film is, in almost every single way, except for story. I think the first movie had a better story. Other than that, I think Apocalypse is superior to the first film by a fucking lot. So with all that said, let's get into the pros. I do think the film is overall very well paced. Not really any scene drags. It's just scene after scene after scene after scene after scene of action or horror or both. This movie just really, really, I think, is very well paced. You're never bored watching the film. It moves along at a very leisurely stride, and whenever a scene sort of kind of starts to drag, something awesome happens, and then boom, there you go, you're good. The special effects in this movie are a big, big, big step up from the previous movie. There's a lot of practical effects, thank God. I want to talk about Nemesis for a minute. Nemesis is so fucking amazing. I love Nemesis so much in this movie. It is, it's just a shame a lot of the other giant monsters in the Resident Evil series aren't, well, after the third film, they're not guys in suits or guys in makeup. Because Nemesis actually was a guy in a suit. He was like 6'8", and he was a bodybuilder, and he put on this heavy ass suit. Nemesis definitely does look like he's 7 foot or 7'2", and is so glorious. The suit is so accurate to the game. In fact, I said this when I watched this with my brother. It looks like Nemesis had stepped out of the game and into the film. Granted, the only difference from the game is that he has more of a conscience in this movie, and he still does have a rocket launcher, but he also has a giant badass motherfucking chain gun to mow bitches down. It's so glorious. Nemesis is so fucking cool. I cannot stress that enough. His first scene when he shows up to kill the STARS members, he's shot by one of them who's on a roof with a sniper rifle a few times. Then he notices the dude up there, and he just says, he growls, and he just raises up his rocket launcher. Boom, bitch. Get out the way. And then he raises up his chain gun and just mows all of the STARS members down. It is so awesome. And the entire time you can tell he's just roaring and enjoying the shit out of it. And right after the chain gun winds down, he utters STARS, which anybody who is a Resident Evil fan knows that's the one line that Nemesis will ever spew out is STARS or STARS, as he says in the newer Resident Evil 3 game. And also, I do believe the suit actor who plays him does a pretty decent job of showing his, like, he shows rage with his roars, but also with his body language. He shows like sentience, mainly in like his last few minutes on screen, with his body language and the way that he roars, and especially with his eye. Because one thing they keep from the films, he only has one eye. And the way that he like moves his face around. There's one when Kane says to Alice, "Evolution has its dead ends. We will basically just discard him." And there's a shot of Nemesis's face where he like opens up his eye, and it widens, and he like curls his lip and realizes, "You bastard." And it's great. It is so glorious. The guy who played Nemesis in this movie just does a phenomenal job. And the suit itself looks very good too. It is all practical. There's a little bit of CGI. However, it's a little understandable because they mainly just use it to augment his eye and his lip a little bit. Like whenever there's a close-up shot of Nemesis's face, they use a little bit of CGI to augment his eye and his lips. However, I can accept that. That's perfectly fine, and it blends in with Nemesis's face just fine, and it looks great. Overall, Nemesis is so fucking cool. And other than that, the special effects still are a big step up. This movie is a lot gorier than a previous film. However, it's not over the top, which is good. The zombie makeup is a big improvement. They don't use any CG to augment the zombies' wounds, which I'm so glad for, because it just looks like total crap when they did. They used makeup, and the makeup is very minimal, like in the first film, which still does make sense because these are fresh zombies. They just have kind of cloudy eyes and really deathly pale skin, and which looks great. The only scene where the zombies are really rotten is that there's a scene in a graveyard where after the group escapes the church, um, Alice, Valentine, Peyton, and Terry are attacked by zombies who um, like burst from their graves, which I am willing to bet is a bit of an homage to Lucio Fulci's Zombie, because there's a scene in that film where zombies rise from an ancient Spanish grave, which I have to call bullshit on because the bodies will be long decomposed by then, but whatever. And they rise out. They're extremely desiccated. They look just like literal walking corpses. And the zombies here, they're all rotten. They have maggots and worms falling out of their face. That's a Lucio Fulci trait. I'd be willing to bet that it is a tribute to Lucio Fulci. And that's the only scene where the zombies look like rotten corpses. They look kind of like Walking Dead zombies. And they're really nasty and rotten and disgusting looking. Other than that, and also the special effects on the lickers are a big improvement too. They mainly only use CG models. However, it sort of makes sense because they're like speedster frogs that just hop and zip around. The only time they use practical effects is when they're killed and they're really quick shots. You kind of have to look for them. But the CG models that they use for the lickers, they're a big step up from the previous film. They no longer look... it's still obviously CG, but it doesn't look as cartoony or choppy or prototypey in the previous film. Here it's a lot smoother. I wouldn't be surprised if they use motion capture a few times. And overall, the special effects for the lickers, they're a big step up. CG doesn't look cartoony at all. And overall, the special effects are really good. The characters in this movie, again, there's a lot of... Actually, no, I wouldn't say there's as much cannon fodder, but I think the characters are a big step up. Alice, I feel like her performance is almost the same as the first movie. She's just allowed to be much more of a badass because at this point, she is becoming superhuman. She has enhanced speed, enhanced strength, enhanced reflexes because she was experimented on and she bonded with the T-virus on a cellular level without it turning her into a zombie or some type of mutant monster. She's just an enhanced human. She's basically a super soldier, like Captain America. Which is awesome. And again, going back to that excuse me. Got a tickle there. Oh, we got one watcher finally. Going back to that cemetery scene, when the zombies arise from their graves, Alice immediately jumps in and she starts killing the zombies via hand-to-hand combat. Hey, it's Kaiju Psycho Films. Hello. She gauges the zombies in hand-to-hand combat, which, if I was to do a zombie movie, that is what I would have my characters do. I would have them use hand-to-hand combat to kill the zombies. Like strong kicks, punches, grappling techniques, and neck breaks. Which they use a lot of neck breaks in this movie, which is a smart idea. That is another way that you can kill a zombie. Is not, if you can't shoot it in the head or brain it, break its neck. Because that'll sever the spinal cord and thus rendering the zombie useless. It's really cool, and it could have been edited just a little better because there's a lot of fast/slow moments. But still does really look cool, and it's something that I would use if I was to make a zombie movie. Yeah, I know that the Resident Evil movies don't really get a lot of respect. It's unfortunate for especially the last two Resident Evil movies. I can sort of understand their criticisms, but I still do legitimately think that these movies aren't as bad as everyone says they are. Anyway, Alice, like I said, character-wise, she's about the same, though here she starts going into her spiel, which I really hate, about how she doesn't feel human. She hates being what she is. She hates being a super soldier, which does not make sense to me. I think I've said this before. I would embrace the opportunity to become superior to the human body. I would embrace being a cyborg. I would embrace being a super soldier. I would even embrace having my consciousness transferred into a completely robotic body. I would absolutely embrace that because I am no longer subject to the failures and weaknesses. Um, yeah, I know it's really, really old when characters doubt themselves. But I'm no longer. I would embrace being a cyborg because at that point I am no longer subject to the failures and weaknesses of the human body. Because let's face it, the human body sucks. And when I listen to Alice rant, bitch, and moan about she doesn't feel human, she hates being what she is, she becomes a freak. She's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why can't you just take this opportunity to be something more than you could ever be by the balls and squeeze it until it gives you whatever it wants and then keep squeezing because you want more and you will never stop wanting more. That is what I would do. Aside from that, Alice is still a badass. She kicks zombie ass. She kicks Nemesis ass. She kicks Umbrella ass. Jill Valentine, her character is kind of one note, but she still is a no-nonsense badass. She's good with the gun. She's good with hand-to-hand combat, because she also engages the zombies in hand-to-hand combat. She is pretty badass. And yes, I know, Heath, she kicks ass. We all get it. Deal with it! The other character that I want to talk about is LJ. I fucking love LJ. It's such a shame they kill him off in the next movie. LJ is so fucking funny. He, the first scene that we see him on his own, he's driving around in a Cadillac, and a zombie walks out in front of him. He goes, GTA, motherfucker! And he smashes into the zombie, flips over him, and lands on the ground. He says, ha ha! Oh, yeah! 10 points! And then he sees this pair of zombie strippers with their tits hanging out. And as he's driving by, he's like... And then he crashes into a car. He's got like this... damn it, man! Come on. And every time I say that nowadays, I just see goddamn titties. Even when you're dead, you're distracting. And like I said, another favorite scene of mine is when he's in the helicopter. He says, "Because I usually drive a Cadillac." Boink! Knocks and punches out Kane. LJ is fucking awesome. He's so funny. He destroys the Token Black character stereotype. And utterly destroys it, like blows it completely out of the multiverse. And like I said, it's a real shame they kill him off in the next movie because he actually turned out to be I know, right? Even when they're dead, they're distracted. Fuck. It's funny. That's kind of how he dies or not doesn't really die. He's infected. It's kind of how he gets infected in the next movie. A female zombie with her tits hanging out. And the next pro is that overall the acting is pretty good as well. The only one who kind of acts over the top is Kane. He's just kind of evil for the sake of being... Well, actually, no, he's not really evil. He's just an asshole. He's an asshole for the sake of being an asshole. But other than that, the acting is overall pretty solid. The action in this movie is also very well done as well. The gunfights, they're very, very well choreographed. Well, they kind of are well choreographed, but they're also very well edited. Like, something that the last Resident Evil movie, not like the one previous, but the last one, the final chapter, really suffers from is that the action scenes are edited really poorly. There's a lot of really quick shots, and it's kind of like shaky cam with really fast editing, and it's really badly edited, and it kind of makes you just feel it left me feeling like the beginnings of the effects of motion sickness at times. That is not present here. The editing is very, very solid. There still are some quick shots here and there, but they're not like shaky cam quick editing. It's quick editing to make things tense, and also the fight scenes are very well choreographed as well. Or like the hand-to-hand fight scenes, like especially the fight between um, Alice and Nemesis. It's very well done. Uh, it's not amazing or anything. I think it's a little short. That maybe just because I've seen it so many times, but it is well choreographed and it is fun to watch. Scares in this movie are also very good as well. There's not really a whole lot of suspense. The scene in the church when they're counting the liquors, that's really the only scene in the film that has any type of suspense. But the scares, mainly it's just body slash gore horror. And there are some jump scares. They're not horrendous like in Mexican V Activity, the ghetto ones, but the jump scares are decent. The gore effects, the gore effect scares are pretty decent too. And it left me jumping, and it left me running out of a basement. And also, the last pro that I have here is that this movie is a great game adaptation. This movie, Apocalypse, is pretty much Resident Evil 3 live action version. It's a live action version of Resident Evil 3, I meant to say. And it is so glorious. Resident Evil 3, while it's not one of my absolute favorite of the Resident Evil games, I do still enjoy it because I do think it's definitely one of the better story-wise for the Resident Evil series. Well, it's not quite as good as Resident Evil 2, but Resident Evil 3 is pretty awesome, and this movie, being pretty much live-action Resident Evil 3, is also awesome for that. I mean, you have Nemesis. There's a shot earlier in the movie when the police department are run over by zombies. There's a shot that's right out of the game, and it's of a SWAT helmet. The camera zooms in on a SWAT helmet, and you see the reflection of zombies passing by, and there's a zombie that stumbles to his knee, and he looks at this SWAT helmet. That's right out of Resident Evil 3, and it's so awesome. So with all those good things said about Resident Evil Apocalypse, oops, I forgot to write something down here. Are there any cons to this movie? Yes. Like I said, this movie does have a weak story. It's very, very basic. It's basically it's one long rescue mission with a lot of distractions. And I can understand the criticisms for the story of this movie almost to a T, because this movie is very, very basic. It's very, very simple. It's not like The Green Mile, which has such a complex plot, or the first two Alien films, which have such a complex plot. Compared to those in terms of story, this movie does fail very much. I don't like the fact that Nemesis dies. That's con number 2. Call me crazy, but I think it would have been so awesome if it would have been a little ridiculous, yes, if they had Nemesis like team up as a good guy. And actually stay around for the rest of, or maybe not the rest, but for like another 2 or 3 movies after this. But what I think would have been cool is if they managed to recover Nemesis and they gave him a super dose of the antivirus, which reversed a lot of the mutations in his body. He still mutated to some degree, but if you hid a lot of it, he could pass for a human, and he regained his normal human consciousness, and he regained his memories as Matt. And if Nemesis continued on as an ally for Alice, like a quasi Umbrella mutant that went rogue, I would have loved to see that. However, Nemesis dies in this movie, and it's so goddamn unfortunate. And the last con that I have for this film is that there's not enough liquor action. There wasn't enough in the previous movie either, but at least the liquor was at least a big threat in the first film. Here, the liquors are only in one scene. Granted, the scene is cool, but it's very quick. You don't see that much of them. You don't see them doing much. And there's just not enough of them. And it's a real damn shame because I really like the liquors. Like I said, I think I said this already. Liquors are some of my favorite Resident Evil monsters. Granted, one of the very few good things I have to say about Resident Evil Retribution is that the liquors there are badass as fuck. And there's plenty of them. So with all that said about Resident Evil Apocalypse, guys, this movie is awesome. This is a really kick-ass film. if you are a Resident Evil movie fan and you have not seen this movie, I definitely do recommend it. It's not exactly a must-see, but for hardcore fans, I still would call it a must-see. What the fuck could I say that? I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. I wanted to give it a perfect 10, but I did realize that this movie's biggest problem is the fact that it does have a weak, very, very, very weak story. Yes, Omega Picture, you're very late. I'm sorry. A Resident Evil Apocalypse, I give it a 9 out of 10. It's a kick-ass zombie movie. It's a kick-ass sci-fi action horror film. And if you are a fan of Resident Evil 3, the game, I definitely do recommend this if you want to see it as a movie. So, with all that said, post your goddamn comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Share this video with your friends. I'm going to really try tomorrow to have Resident Evil Extinction review out for you guys. Because I want to have these done by Wednesday or Thursday. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends, and as always, thank you to Kaiju Psycho Films for stopping by and saying hello. And as always, I will see you in the next video.